Get out of my house. That's what she said, her voice sharp enough to slice through the air like a blade. My own daughter-in-law, standing in the middle of my living room with her hands on her hips, eyes burning with something I still can't name. Anger? Hatred? Fear? I remember just standing there, my heart thudding so hard I could hear it. My hands trembled, but I didn't move. I didn't say a word. Because sometimes silence is louder than a scream, and in that moment I chose silence. What she didn't know was that 2 days later, she'd be the one standing in my shoes, quiet, broken, and sorry. People always think mothers-in-law are the problem. I get it. We have that reputation. Controlling, nosy, always interfering. But I wasn't that kind. I kept my distance. I raised my son to be independent, respectful, and kind. When he got married, I told myself I'd be the kind of mother-in-law who gives space. And for a while, I thought I was doing it right. Before all this happened, our house was peaceful, small, warm, filled with the smell of cinnamon tea and the sound of evening prayers. My son Jamal used to visit every weekend. He'd come in smiling, holding a bag of groceries, saying, "Mama, you don't need to cook for me anymore." And I'd always laugh. "Boy, I've been cooking for you since before you had teeth. You're not about to stop me now." Then he met her. Alina. Pretty girl, polished, always wearing something that shimmered when she moved. At first she was all smiles and compliments. "Oh, Auntie, your house smells divine," or, "You raised such a gentleman, I liked her." I really did. She was different from the girls Jamal had dated before. Confident, ambitious, a bit proud maybe. But I thought she just had dreams bigger than ours. When they got married, I gave them my blessings. I helped with the wedding. I made her favorite biryani. I even gave them the gold bangles I'd been saving for Jamal's wife since he was 10. But you see, kindness sometimes plants seeds in the wrong soil. After the wedding, Jamal moved in with her to the city. We talked less, but I told myself that's how it should be. Every mother knows the day her son chooses another woman's home over hers is the day she learns to let go. Still, I missed him. So when Alina called one day, out of the blue, and said, "Mama, why don't you come stay with us for a few weeks? We'd love to have you." My heart swelled. I packed my small suitcase that night, took my soft prayer mat, a few saris, and a jar of homemade pickles. I even wrapped a little gift for Alina, a silk scarf I'd bought for her months earlier. I didn't know then that I was walking into a storm. When I arrived, the apartment looked like a showroom. Marble floors, white curtains, not a thing out of place. Alina greeted me with a polite smile, her voice tight. Jamal hugged me, though I could feel the tension in his arms. "Everything all right, son?" I whispered. He smiled faintly. "Yeah, Mama, everything's fine." But something about that smile didn't reach his eyes. The first few days I kept to myself. Cooked simple meals, folded laundry, tried not to be in their way. But Alina, she had a way of making me feel unwelcome without saying a word. Like when she'd sigh loudly every time I entered the kitchen. Or when she'd accidentally forget to set an extra plate at dinner. Little things. Too small to confront, too heavy to ignore. And Jamal? He stayed quiet. Maybe he didn't notice. Maybe he didn't want to. But I noticed everything. The way she looked at me when he wasn't watching. The way she rearranged the living room right after I'd cleaned it, whispering under her breath, "I like things my way." I told myself it was fine. I could bear it. After all, this was her home now. One evening it happened. I was in the kitchen, stirring lentils on the stove, when Alina walked in. Her face was flushed, her voice sharp. "Did you use my saucepan again?" I looked down at the pot in my hand. Old stainless steel, nothing special. "Oh, I didn't realize it was yours, dear. I just grabbed what was on the shelf." She crossed her arms. "You didn't realize? Mama, everything in this kitchen is mine. You can't just touch things without asking." Her tone, that word mine, it stung more than I'd admit. I opened my mouth to apologize, but she wasn't done. "Jamal and I have our own system here. You're making things confusing." She turned to leave, muttering, "I told him this wouldn't work." I froze. That one sentence sank deep. This wouldn't work. That night, I barely slept. I kept wondering if I'd done something wrong. Maybe I'd stayed too long. Maybe she just needed space. In the morning, I decided to talk to Jamal, but before I could, I heard raised voices from the bedroom. "Why don't you tell her to go?" she snapped. "I can't live like this, Jamal." My breath caught. I stepped back from the door, heart pounding. And then came the moment that burned itself into my memory. The door swung open. Alina's eyes met mine, cold, sharp. She pointed toward the front door and said it. "Get out of my house." For a long time, no one moved. Jamal stood behind her, helpless, silent. And me? I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I didn't even pack properly. I just looked at my son, my boy who couldn't meet my eyes, and walked out. The hallway light flickered as I closed the door behind me. I remember thinking, sometimes silence is the only dignity you have left. 2 days later, that same girl who threw me out came to my doorstep. Eyes red, voice trembling, and for the first time, she was the one asking for forgiveness. After that day, I went back to my small home, the one with peeling blue paint and the rosebush by the gate. It was quiet there, too quiet. I tried to settle back into my old rhythm. Morning tea on the porch, feeding the neighborhood cats, saying my prayers in the corner by the window. But everything felt heavy, like even the air carried Alina's words. "Get out of my house." For the first 2 nights, I didn't sleep. I kept hearing Jamal's silence in my head. That silence hurt more than her shouting ever could. On the 3rd morning, as I watered my plants, my neighbor, Mrs. Daniels, peeked over the fence. "Didn't your son come home for the weekend?" she asked gently. I shook my head, forcing a smile. "No, dear. He's busy." She gave me that look, the one people give when they sense something's wrong but don't want to pry. "Well, you know where to find me if you need company." When she left, I stood there for a while, letting the hose water spill over my slippers. My heart felt like damp soil, soft, bruised, uncertain. By afternoon, I got a call. It was Jamal. His voice was thin, tired. "Mama, I'm sorry about what happened. I didn't say anything at first. I could hear cars in the background. Maybe he was calling from work." He continued, "Alina's just been stressed. Things haven't been easy for her lately." I swallowed hard. "I understand, son. But stress doesn't give you the right to disrespect someone who's done nothing but love you." He sighed. "I know, Mama, I know. She regrets it." I almost laughed at that. "Regrets it?" Regret doesn't erase humiliation. Still, I softened my tone. "Tell her I wish her peace. And Jamal, take care of yourself." He went quiet for a moment, then said, "I love you, Mama," and hung up. For the next 2 days, I stayed busy. Cleaned out the cabinets, baked bread for the neighbors, even started sewing a new curtain. It was my way of pretending everything was fine. But I couldn't shake a strange feeling, like a shadow that kept following me. Because even though Alina had thrown me out, I couldn't stop worrying about her. Something about that last look on her face, like before I left, had unsettled me. It wasn't just anger. There was something behind it. Fear, maybe? And mothers, we feel these things. Even when it's not our child, we sense when something isn't right. That Friday evening, as I was folding laundry, I heard a knock on the door. 3 quick knocks, urgent. When I opened it, there she was, Alina. Her hair was messy, her eyes swollen. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Alina?" I whispered, completely thrown off. "What's wrong?" She didn't answer right away. Her lips trembled before she finally said, "Mama, I need to talk to you. Please." I let her in. She sank onto the sofa like her knees couldn't hold her anymore. I poured her a glass of water, and she clutched it with both hands like it was something precious. "Did something happen to Jamal?" I asked, my heart already racing. She shook her head quickly. "No, he's fine. He's at work. It's me. It's everything." She looked up at me, and for the first time, her eyes weren't proud or sharp. They were filled with guilt. "I shouldn't have spoken to you that way," she said quietly. "I was cruel." "You didn't deserve that." Her words caught me off guard. I didn't know whether to hug her or stay still. "I appreciate you saying that," I replied softly. "But why now, Alina? Why come here like this?" She hesitated. Her fingers fidgeted with her wedding ring. Because I thought I had everything under control, but I don't. I made a mistake, Mama. A big one. She looked toward the window as if afraid someone might be listening. Then she whispered, "There's something you should know. About Jamal, about us." I froze. "What do you mean?" She hesitated again, her voice trembling. "We've been fighting a lot lately. About money, about his job, but that's not the main thing. The reason I've been so tense is because..." And then she stopped. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Because I lied to him," she said finally, "and now I don't know how to fix it." I sat there, unsure how to respond. "Lied? About what?" Her shoulders shook as she whispered, "About something I did before we got married." The room went quiet. Even the ticking clock seemed to hold its breath. She continued, voice cracking, "I didn't marry Jamal for love, Mama. Not at first. I married him because I thought he could fix something for me, something I'd broken." My stomach sank. "Alina, what are you saying?" She took a deep breath, eyes glassy. "My family was in debt. I was desperate. I met Jamal at work and he was kind, so kind. I thought if I married him, I'd find peace. But I didn't. The guilt, it's been eating me alive." I didn't know what to say. I felt the air drain from the room. All those little things, her tension, her anger, the coldness, they started making sense. She wasn't just being cruel. She was carrying something heavy. "Does Jamal know?" I asked softly. She shook her head. "Not yet, but I think he suspects. He's been distant, quiet, and I know. When he finds out, it'll destroy him." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "That's why I lashed out at you. I was scared, Mama. I took it out on you because I didn't want him to see how broken I am." I looked at her, this young woman who had once seemed so sure of herself, and I saw something new. Not pride, not malice, just regret, deep, aching regret. I reached over and touched her hand. "Everyone makes mistakes, Alina, but how you face them, that's what defines you, not how well you hide them." She nodded slowly, wiping her tears. "I don't deserve your kindness," I smiled faintly. "Maybe not, but I'm giving it anyway." That night after she left, I sat on the porch for a long time. The moon hung low, silver against the clouds. I thought about how life can twist people, how fear can turn love into control, guilt into cruelty. I didn't know what Alina planned to do next. But something told me the storm in that house wasn't over, and the next time I'd see her, everything would change. The next morning, I woke up with a heaviness I couldn't shake. It was that same feeling I used to get when a storm was coming. The sky still bright, but the wind just different. Something was about to happen, and I could feel it in my bones. I decided to call Jamal. I wanted to hear his voice, to see if Alina had told him the truth yet. When he picked up, his tone was clipped, polite but distracted. "Morning, Mama." "Morning, son." "How are you?" A pause. "I'm fine." I could hear typing in the background, the hum of an office printer. I pictured him sitting at his desk, trying to act like everything was normal. "Alina came to see me yesterday," I said gently. Silence. Then, his voice low. "I know." That caught me off guard. "You know she came, or you know what she told me?" He let out a slow breath. "Both." My hand trembled around the phone. "Jamal, did she tell you everything?" He hesitated, then said, "She told me enough." There was a long pause between us, the kind that carries 100 unspoken words. Finally, I whispered, "Son, what are you going to do?" He didn't answer right away. I could hear the pain in his silence. Then, softly, he said, "I don't know, Mama. I feel like my whole marriage was built on a lie." After we hung up, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. Part of me wanted to call Alina, to comfort her again. But another part of me, the mother in me, was angry. Angry that she'd used my son's kindness to cover her own mistakes. Angry that she'd taken advantage of his heart, his trust. You see, Jamal isn't the kind of man who falls easily. When he loves with his whole soul. And Alina, she'd played with that. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized. Life rarely deals in heroes and villains. Sometimes, it's just broken people hurting each other in ways they never meant to. Still, that didn't make it right. That evening, my phone rang again. This time it was Jamal, his voice thick. "Mama, can you come over tomorrow?" "Of course. Is everything okay?" "No," he said quietly. "But it will be." He hung up before I could ask anything else. The next day, I took the bus to their apartment. The ride felt longer than before. Maybe because I knew what waited on the other end. When I reached their building, the air felt heavy, like all the windows were holding their breath. I knocked softly. Jamal opened the door. His face looked different, tired, distant, but calm. That calm you see in someone who's decided something final. "Come in, Mama." The living room looked untouched since I'd last seen it. The same white curtains, the same vase of fake lilies, the same photo of their wedding on the wall. Both of them smiling, unaware of what the future held. Alina sat on the couch, eyes red and swollen. She didn't look up. I took a seat across from them, my heart pounding. Jamal spoke first. "She told me everything, Mama." I nodded slowly, saying nothing. She said she married me because her family needed money, that her father was drowning in debt, and she thought being with me would fix it. His voice cracked on the last word. "I thought she loved me," he said, almost to himself. "But I guess I was just a solution." Alina finally looked up, tears glistening on her cheeks. "Jamal, please. It wasn't like that. I did fall in love with you. It started wrong." He stared at her for a long time. Not with anger, but with that deep sadness only betrayal can bring. "You could have told me, Alina," he said quietly. "You had so many chances." She buried her face in her hands. I was ashamed. I kept waiting for the right time, but it never came. Then, when your mother came to stay, I felt like everything I'd built was about to crumble. I took it out on her because she reminded me of everything good, everything I wasn't. Her voice broke. "I'm so sorry, Mama," I swallowed hard. "Child, pain doesn't justify cruelty, but I understand now." She nodded, sobbing softly. "I know I hurt you. I hurt all of us." The room fell quiet again. Only the sound of a clock ticking filled the space. Jamal stood up, running a hand through his hair. "I need some time. I'm going to stay with a friend for a few days." Alina's eyes widened. "Please, Jamal, don't leave. I can fix this. I'll do anything." He didn't look at her. "Some things can't be fixed overnight, Alina." He turned to me. "Mama, can you stay here with her?" "Just for tonight." She shouldn't be alone, I hesitated. After everything, he was still thinking of her. The kind heart I'd raised, still intact. "Yes, son," I said quietly. "Go clear your head." He hugged me. A long, silent hug. Then left. When the door closed behind him, Alina sat still, staring at nothing. I made her some tea and we sat together in silence. Finally, she whispered, "He's never going to forgive me, is he?" I looked into her eyes. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, child, but it can soften it. Time will tell what kind of man you married. She smiled weakly. "You raised a good one." That night, she fell asleep on the couch and I covered her with a blanket. Watching her sleep, I saw not an enemy, but a frightened girl who'd made a terrible choice. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger, only sorrow. The next morning, the phone rang. I picked it up. "Mama?" Jamal's voice was shaking. "Can you come down to the hospital?" "It's Alina." My heart stopped. "What happened?" She collapsed. "They think it's stress or exhaustion. I don't know. Please hurry. I didn't even grab my purse." The next thing I knew, I was in a taxi, praying under my breath, clutching the scarf I'd once given her. When I reached the hospital, Jamal was pacing outside the room, his face pale. He looked at me, eyes full of panic. They said she fainted at work. Low blood sugar, dehydration, maybe something else. "I shouldn't have left her alone, Mama." I held his hand. "This isn't your fault, son." But in my heart, I knew. This was the weight of secrets, the toll of guilt, pressing down until her body gave in. Through the glass window, I could see her lying there, pale and still, machines beeping softly. And that's when I realized pain has a way of circling back. It doesn't disappear, it finds you, and it demands to be faced. The beeping of the heart monitor was the only sound in that white, sterile hospital room. I stood beside Alina's bed, looking at her pale face, her hands covered in faint bruises from IV lines. For a woman who had once seemed so strong, so sure of herself, she now looked small, fragile, like a flower after a storm. Jamal sat in the corner, his elbows on his knees, his eyes fixed on the floor. He hadn't spoken in almost an hour. I gently touched his shoulder. "Son, you should eat something. You've been here since morning." He shook his head. I can't leave her like this." I sighed quietly. "You love her, don't you?" He didn't look at me. "I hate what she did, but yes, I still love her." And there it was, the truth I had always known. Love doesn't disappear with betrayal. It just becomes quieter, heavier, waiting to see if it can still survive. When Alina finally opened her eyes, it was past noon. Her gaze fluttered around the room before settling on Jamal. "Hey," she whispered weakly. Jamal stood up, his face softening. "Hey." For a few seconds, they just looked at each other. No anger, no pride, just two broken people trying to remember how they got here. She turned her head toward me next. "Mama," I smiled faintly. "You rest now, child. The world can wait." A tear slipped down her cheek. I don't deserve this kindness. I reached for her hand. Maybe not, but sometimes grace finds us anyway. Over the next few days, I stayed with her in the hospital. Jamal went home to pick up clothes, bring meals, take calls. But every night, he came back to sit by her side. I watched him, quiet, patient, exhausted, and it reminded me of his father. My late husband had that same stillness in him, the same way of carrying pain without complaint. I used to think that kind of love was old-fashioned, but maybe it's the only kind that lasts. One evening, while Jamal had stepped out to talk to the doctor, Alina turned to me. "Mama," she said softly, "can I tell you something?" I nodded. I didn't just lie about why I married Jamal. There's something else I never told him. My chest tightened. "What is it?" She took a shaky breath. "The debt I mentioned, it wasn't just about my family's money. It was my fault. I lost it. All of it." I frowned, not understanding. "I used to work at a company as an assistant," she continued. "One day my boss asked me to handle some transactions. I made a mistake, a huge one. A number in the wrong column. It cost the company nearly $20,000. She paused, staring at the ceiling. "They fired me. I thought I'd go to jail. My family panicked. They sold our property, borrowed from relatives, anything to pay it back. I was desperate. That's when I met Jamal. He was kind, generous, and I thought maybe marrying him could help cover what I'd lost." Her voice broke on the last word. It sounds disgusting when I say it out loud. I exhaled slowly, absorbing it all. "Does he know?" She shook her head. "No. I told him we were struggling, but not why." I sat there in silence, the weight of her confession settling between us like fog. Then I said quietly, "Alina, secrets are like cracks in a wall. You can paint over them, but one day the storm will show where the weakness lies." She nodded, tears streaming. "I know, and I think that's what finally broke me." Later that night, Jamal returned with coffee. I told him to sit. "Son, she needs to tell you something." Alina's eyes widened in fear. "Mama, please," but I held her gaze. "Truth is mercy, child. Speak it while you can." Jamal looked between us, confused. "What's going on?" Alina took a deep breath. "Jamal, there's more I need to tell you." He frowned. "More?" She nodded slowly. "It's about why I married you. I wasn't just trying to help my family. I was trying to fix something I'd broken, something that ruined our lives." And then she told him everything. Every detail. The mistake, the debt, the lies. By the time she finished, Jamal was sitting perfectly still, his jaw clenched. When she said, "I'm sorry," it came out like a whisper that fell into the silence and disappeared. He didn't speak for a long time. Then finally he stood up. "I would have helped you, Alina. You didn't have to lie to me. You didn't have to use me." "I know," she whispered, sobbing. "I was scared. I thought you'd see me as damaged." He turned away, his shoulders tense. "I didn't need you to be perfect. I just needed you to be honest." He walked out of the room, leaving both of us in silence. After he left, Alina broke down completely. She sobbed into her pillow until her voice was hoarse. I sat beside her, rubbing her back like she was my own child. "Sometimes," I said quietly, "we don't realize that love isn't a rescue. It's a mirror. It shows us who we really are." She whispered, "Then what am I, Mama?" I looked at her tear-streaked face. "You're a woman who lost her way, but that doesn't mean you can't find it again." That night, I went to Jamal's apartment to check on him. He was sitting in the dark, staring at the wedding photo on the table. "Mama," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "How do I forgive her? How do I trust her again?" I sat beside him. "Forgiveness isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's about deciding that her mistake won't poison the good in you." He looked at me, eyes glistening. "But it still hurts." "It will," I said softly. "But hurt is proof that you still have a heart." The next morning, I went back to the hospital. Alina had checked herself out. The nurse said she'd left early, without telling anyone. I called Jamal, but his phone went to voicemail. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. I didn't know it then. But that day would change everything, because sometimes the truth doesn't end a story. It starts the real one. 2 days passed. No one had heard from Alina, not me. Not Jamal, not even her family. Her phone went straight to voicemail, and the house she once filled with candles and laughter now sat quiet and cold. Jamal barely slept. I'd find him sitting on the porch at 3 a.m., staring into the street like maybe she'd walk up any moment with an apology and that shy smile of hers. But she didn't. Instead, what came was noise, gossip, whispers, and finally, the truth finding its own cruel way to the surface. It started with a post online. A former co-worker of Alina's made a comment on social media. Something about her being the reason the company lost $20,000. Within hours, it spread. People started connecting the dots. Screenshots, old messages, photos. All of it painted Alina as a liar, a fraud, a woman who used love to cover her sins. By the evening, the story had turned into something ugly. Strangers were calling her a con artist, accusing her of trapping Jamal for money. I saw it on my phone, scrolling through comments that felt like daggers. People didn't care about truth. They cared about spectacle, and for the first time, I understood why Alina had always been so afraid of being seen. When Jamal saw the posts, he went silent. His face hardened, not in anger, but in heartbreak. "She didn't deserve this," he said quietly. "Not like this," I nodded. "No one does." He looked at me, pain swimming behind his eyes. I told her I needed time. I didn't tell her I was done. What if she thought I hated her? I touched his hand. "Then find her, son. Don't let pride turn into regret." That night Jamal drove for hours. He went to her old apartment, her friends' places, even the cafe she used to visit after work. But she was nowhere. It wasn't until he stopped at the small chapel near the city edge that he found her, sitting on the back steps, her hair messy, her eyes red from crying. She looked up when he called her name. "Jamal." He walked toward her slowly, like approaching something fragile. "Why'd you leave the hospital?" She gave a broken laugh. Everyone was staring at me like I was a scandal, not a person. I couldn't breathe. He sat beside her. "You could have called. I didn't think you'd want to hear from me." He sighed, running a hand over his face. "Alina, I was angry. I still am. But what they're saying online, that's not fair. You made a mistake. You didn't deserve to be destroyed for it." She looked at him, her voice trembling. "But maybe I did. Maybe this is what happens when you build your life on lies." He turned to her sharply. "Stop saying that. You messed up, yes, but you also tried to fix it. You paid your debt. You've been punishing yourself long before the world ever did." For a long time, they sat there, two people who had broken each other, yet somehow still found comfort sitting side by side in the dark. Meanwhile, back home, the noise hadn't stopped. People were tagging Jamal, making videos, gossiping about how he'd been used. Friends called me, some with pity, others with judgment, all with too much to say. I didn't answer most of them, because none of them were there when I saw that girl cry in her sleep. None of them saw the way my son still looked at her like she was both his wound and his healing. A few days later, Alina came by the house. She looked nervous, holding an envelope in her hand. "This is for you," she said softly. I opened it. It was a letter addressed to Jamal, along with the deed to the house they shared. "I signed it over to him," she whispered. "It's the least I can do. I'm leaving the city, Mama. I got a job offer out of state. Small office, quiet town. I think I need to start over." I felt a sting behind my eyes. "Are you sure that's what you want?" She nodded. "It's not what I want. It's what I need." I held her hand. "Then go, but don't disappear forever. Some stories deserve a second chapter," she smiled faintly. "Maybe one day, I'll be brave enough to write it." When Jamal came home that evening, I gave him the letter. He read it in silence, every line softening something in his face. "She said she's leaving." I nodded. He folded the letter carefully. "Then I hope she finds peace. She's been running from herself for too long." I studied him. "And you? Will you be okay?" He took a deep breath. "I think I will. I loved her, Mama. But love isn't about holding someone down. Sometimes it's about letting them find their own way back, even if it's not to you." Weeks passed. The gossip died down, as all things online eventually do. Jamal went back to work, quieter but lighter somehow. One morning, he brought me a small package. Inside was a postcard. No return address, just a simple note written in Alina's handwriting. It said, "Tell Jamal thank you for teaching me what real love looks like. I'm learning to forgive the girl I used to be." I read it twice before handing it to him. He smiled. That quiet, sad smile that comes when pain has finally made peace with memory. That night, I sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker. I thought about all the ways people hurt each other, and all the ways they heal, not perfectly, not neatly, but enough to keep going. And I realized something. Forgiveness isn't about who was right or wrong. It's about who chooses to stop the cycle, who decides that love, even after betrayal, is still worth believing in. Maybe that's what grace really is. Not a gift, but a choice.